Buenas tardes. How are we doing? Are we enjoying the convention? I am so proud to be here and get to spend this week with you all. Like Rick said, my name is Ana Gonzalez. I am the Deputy Director of Politics and Policy at the Texas AFL-CIO. I've been there a little bit more than a year, but I have been privileged to be fighting alongside the Texas AFL-CIO team for the last 7 years and really fighting for workers for the last 7 years. And I'm just very proud to be here with this incredible panel who also are my fellow luchadores, that we've been nonstop just making sure that we have and we get what working families need in our state. So let's do introductions. And Ross, you talked a little bit about yourself, but you've been doing this for over 10 years, so I'll let you go ahead and start.
Thank you very much. Yeah. As said before, Ross Templeton, I'm Political and Legislative Director for the Ironworkers. Been with the union for about 11 years and get to work with a great team and some fantastic people. I'm based out of Washington, D.C. I work with the administration, work with Congress, but on top of that, really kind of try to work all the way down and work with local unions, especially on the state and local politics, which is where the real business actually happens. So I want to acknowledge and recognize all of my fantastic Ironworker brothers who are here in the group. And that's really the best part of the job is the state and local side of it. So thank you.
Mi hermana en la lucha, Amanda.
Hi, y'all. Amanda Posson. I work at Every Texan as a worker power policy analyst. Every Texan is a nonprofit organization that uses statewide policy solutions to advance equity and opportunity for every Texan living in this great state. And I'm so pleased to be here. As mentioned earlier, we are a union shop. Every Texan United unionized in 2020. We fought so damn hard for a contract that would raise the bar for ourselves and reflect our values.
Great. Thank you, Amanda. And then the mighty Hany.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Hany Khalil, member of the Houston Federation of Teachers and Executive Director of the Texas Gulf Coast Area Labor Federation. That's the regional labor council in the Houston region.
All right. Well, let's start our conversation and really talk about how we're winning for workers in our state and at the federal level as well. And we've been talking about this throughout the convention, and Ross, you just talk about it, and we know that the labor movement is growing and that we're seeing big wins for Texas workers and also at the federal level. You talked about how unions are really shaping political agendas, how we're electing people that are willing to fight for us at all levels of the government, and how just really our voice and the voices of workers are being included. So maybe you talked right now about the infrastructure bill and gave other examples, but Ross, can you tell us how labor unions are shaping the conversation and legislation at the federal level, and just give us other examples of that?
Absolutely. Happy to. Thanks. I think everybody's, both the national AFL-CIO and everybody's national affiliates have just a phenomenal team of lobbyists on Capitol Hill who are out there all the time fighting for workers' rights and for the strength of unions. And remaining really plugged into this fight when we're in this current Congress. Now, of course, we have divided government right now, which limits a lot of our options. We aren't going to get these multi-trillion-dollar pieces of legislation right now, but we do have a lot of room to make our voices heard and get some good bipartisan compromise legislation in here that's still very beneficial for workers. I can say that something that Ironworkers are working on, and many building trades, many other unions too, is we're looking for some bipartisan permitting reform legislation, because there's always the danger that we get the infrastructure law, we get the Inflation Reduction Act, but none of these infrastructure or energy projects actually get built because they get stuck in red tape. So this is something where we've leaned in quite effectively. and we were able to get some, in the bipartisan budget bill, we were able to get some permitting reform language done already into law, which improves the situation. But it's not enough. We need to be able to do more, otherwise we're going to end up with energy projects that are kind of stranded, not able to get the transmission lines up to major city centers where the actual demand is. You think about it, we have this huge, huge challenge where the clean energy sources of today and tomorrow are not in the same places where a lot of the existing generation is. So we need to be able to permit and get a lot of new grid infrastructure up in order to make these projects actually happen. So that's a large priority that we have right now. In addition, like I said, defend the organization. We are fighting to defend what we've won. Bipartisan infrastructure law, as we just said, had Republicans and Democrats both voting for it. Same with CHIPS and Science Act. Neither of this stuff could be legislation if it weren't bipartisan. And unfortunately, you'd think that would be enough to protect it. Even if people were a little grumpy about it when they passed it, they would still like the projects coming into their area. But what we've been seeing now is a lot of attacks on this legislation. We were able to, there's legislation repealing large chunks of the Inflation Reduction Act that had to do with clean power and programs like the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which had Davis-Bacon, which is being rolled out right now. We were able to defend it, but they tried to take it away in the House of Representatives. In addition, we've had a budget bill that's been released in the House of Representatives that would repeal huge chunks of the Inflation Reduction Act and bipartisan infrastructure law. It's a major problem. Republicans, and again, I hate to just pin it on Republicans, but this is where it's coming from, seem to be determined to roll back so much of what we've won. And they may not have total control of government, they just have the House of Representatives, but that gives them a lot of leverage to defund the programs that are important for us. Again, all the best labor language in the world in a rule or in legislation doesn't mean anything if they change that billion to a zero when it comes to the amount of funding there. So labor unions are out there fighting very hard to defend. We have great allies in this. I don't see Joe Biden signing anything that's going to be that's going to undo this signature achievement, especially if it has to do with labor standards or rights. But we still need to go in there and have the fight because when they control the House of Representatives, they have genuine power. Something's on the chopping block. We need to be able to maneuver around that and make sure that it works. On top of that, beyond the here and now, the other big piece, and it's kind of the elephant in the room, the way that we shape legislation is by deciding who's writing that legislation. The election is coming up. It's important. The single most important thing any of us can do right now to make sure that this legislation is protected, continues to be good, continues to be rolled out the right way, and that we're able to win new positive legislation in the future is make Colin Allred the next U.S. Senator from the state of Texas, and make sure that Joe Biden is a two-term president. Good. And this is ground zero right here. I mean, these are hugely consequential races. Both of those huge statewide races, the presidential campaign is underway, and they take Texas seriously as a potential swing state. We have the ability to deliver that. On top of that, U.S. Senate race is tremendously important. As folks may know, Democrats have a pretty bad map in the U.S. Senate. Texas is the best flipping opportunity that Democrats got. So take that for what you will, but it does mean that the work here is incredibly important because we're going to have to play defense all over the country. And getting a good vote and calling into the U.S. Senate, replacing, is it Ted Up? Replacing that guy. That would be, we can send him packing down to Cancun. So that's something that matters a lot. Again, I know Texas AFL and all the ELFs have great ground game programs. That matters. Investing in that and doing the work matters quite a bit. And as well, the presidential level. Everything that I talked about up there, we lose it with a different president. We may lose that with a different Democrat. We got to be blunt about this. It has been something throughout my time in politics and in my time in labor. I have not felt like the Democrats are always our friends. And that has been a problem that's grown and grown and grown, and I think it's reflected in the changing vote patterns of a lot of union membership. If union members feel like they've been betrayed by Democrats in the past, I can't say I necessarily blame them. Now we have something different. Now we have a president who personally, and everybody that I speak to in that administration, whether they went back to Obama, went back to Clinton, everyone says, this is different, but the personal investment of Joe Biden in the labor movement. We don't get that with anybody else. So this is a truly crucial election. If we lose the White House in 2024, if it's this other guy coming back or one of these new clowns coming in to take it, they can almost instantly stymie the flow of money into these good projects. They can take every good rule that we've gotten, every executive order up there, repeal it, replace it with something negative towards us. Right now, we're in a position where we are trusted voices with this administration, representing union workers, representing the public. Our advice is valued when every single one of these programs is put together. The phones stop getting picked up as soon as another president is in office. And the thing about all of these programs, some of the money's going out now. Some of the rest of it goes out over the next 5 years. It may be another president who gets to spend it, and they will spend it in a different way. On top of that, even when it's awarded over 5 years, it takes 10 years to build some of these projects. And we all know how it is. The best promises in the world from a state or from a company, they'll promise anything when they don't have the money yet. But as soon as that money arrives, they start getting a little bit squirrely on us. So we need folks in office who are going to continue to fight for us. And yes, absolutely. And this group has a tool there. All right. And that goes down the ballot as well, beyond the Senate and the White House. Congressional, you guys have a great congressional delegation that's been built up over these past years in Texas. We can win more districts. We can keep on fighting. And the most crucial level of government is always the state government. I know the governor ain't up on the ballot this year, but there's a lot of work we can do, legislative races and city races. It really stood out to me on election night 2022, looking at the precinct by precinct vote shifts, right? I'm sorry to get all nerdy on you, but I love this stuff. Precinct by precinct, Texas may have swung a little bit to the right, but it wasn't as much as Florida did. And you look at the cities in Texas, those swung more towards Democrats. And again, that's where a huge amount of power is. So where we're looking at these big hydrogen projects, where we're looking at a lot of these power purchase agreements and all the rest of that, labor has huge power in a lot of these primaries and a lot of these general elections in the areas where these projects are getting built or that are buying a lot of the products. So we have the ability to go out there, make sure we're getting more county judges, more mayors, more folks who are there and are going to be positive for us in the implementation of that work. So across the board, huge opportunities, a lot going on, and a lot needs to be done in order to make it happen. Again, the important thing is continuing conversation, working with the ALFs, working with the state Fed, working with each other, not getting stuck in our own little camps and tribes. It's easy. I'm in the building trades. I'm proud of it to be representing folks who build things. But it doesn't benefit me any if I'm only talking to other building trades unions. Talking to industrial unions, public sector stuff, and cuts every which way. Having this joint effort in order to win these elections and then influence the outcome of legislation and policy, that's the way that we get it done. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Russ. And I think that we can all agree that there's so much on the line for workers next year. And all of us have to come together and make sure that we're fighting and getting labor champions elected. But let's shift a little bit the conversation. Amanda and May, we concluded the regular session from the Texas legislature. We were there for 140 days, and I don't know who was counting, right? And I think that this is one of the worst sessions that we've ever had. I've worked in that building for 10 years, and I can really say that what was the focus of that session and just like overall the division, the attacks on all of our communities, and the missed opportunities really that we had, and all the money that we had in the budget, and really what we could do to benefit workers in our state was just completely ignored. In fact, they really tried to attack in every way they could. They tried to further prohibit project labor agreements In Texas, they tried to eliminate Davis-Bacon prevailing wages and so many other things that thankfully we're able to stop them from doing. But there was a lot of thank you. A lot of things that did pass, unfortunately. But Amanda, I think we agree that in Texas, there's more that unites us than divides us. So can you talk to us about Every Texan's People's Budget, specifically focusing on worker power and how the legislature, like I mentioned, missed an opportunity on really impacting working families?
Of course. And I think everyone knows in this room what a luchadora Ana Gonzalez is, and we are lucky, so lucky to have her at the forefront of every fight for working families in the state, black, brown, and white. At Every Texan, we're a statewide policy organization. We've been around since 1985, working with and on behalf of working folks of all backgrounds. Since 1985, we've been trying to advance people-centered policies. There's 30 million incredible individuals and families that live in this great state. We are the greatest thing about this state, we the people. From Amarillo to McAllen, El Paso to Houston, we are the best thing going. And our governor is not a pro-labor individual like our president. He's the enemy. He's the villain. We need to continue to call him out and name him as the villain fighting against working families of all backgrounds. So part of our work at Every Texan is putting forth statewide policy solutions that focus on working families and raising the bar for every single one of us through policies like raising the minimum wage, paid leaves. It is a travesty and grotesque that predominantly women birth babies and are expected to show up at a cash register in 2 days after that baby's born without pay. And most likely that woman has gone into medical debt to pay for that birth. We have a vision. We, the people in this room, the workers of the state, we have a vision for our families. And Every Texan, all we've been doing is listening and trying to put y'all's vision together in something called the People's Budget, where we raise the bar for all of us and demand that our state legislature invest in us, the greatest asset that the state has. We've heard, all through the convention, the state had a $33 billion surplus this year and didn't raise teachers' salaries. And we have Texas AFT in the room, and they ran a badass campaign to create awareness on this issue and reach the public. And there's one really incredible sign of a teacher standing in a crowd, asking for a pay raise and saying, "My second job paid for this sign." And I'll never forget that image, that's how we treat our teachers in Texas, right? They're working second jobs. Enough is enough. It's time to focus our state resources on our people. And that means some of these universal truths. That means affordable health care for every Texan. That means paid leaves for every Texan living in the state. That means worker protections, addressing misclassification, wage theft, all of these things. So we've been talking about this since 1985. We've made one small change. We had an epiphany in 2018, 2019, and that is centering worker power and union density in this agenda. We can't achieve a people's budget, a people's vision for the state without union density. We know the National Labor Relations Board has put out data showing the increase in the number of union petitions filing, which is huge and significant and good. We've seen an uptick in Texas's union petitions being filed. Overall, Texas, of all nationally union petitions, usually represents between 2% and 4%. Let's get it to 15%. We can do it. We can organize. We can become union dense, and we can be stronger and achieve this vision that we all carry so deep inside of us where we can thrive and prosper together. We don't have to continue to accept less from Governor Abbott.
Absolutely. And Amanda, I think that's something that was, a big fight, and our organizations really led this, was fighting against House Bill 2127, which is really the biggest transfer of power. And Ross, you were talking about this, right? Like how important the work at the local level is, where really we can do a lot of change, where Hany and Amanda, we've been able to pass so many policies that really elevate standards for workers in our state and cities and counties. So can you talk to us a little bit about what we call the Death Star bill?
Yeah, so I think many folks in this room are familiar with HB 2127, aka the Death Star bill, but and I think Anna too, we like to call it the Anti-Local Freedom Act, because all of these universal truths that we were just talking about, having access to affordable health care, having water breaks in the state where it's 100 degrees plus 90 days out of the year. Some of these ordinances that we've passed, right, in partnership with local elected officials to protect our families, protect our local freedoms, protect our local democracy, are being completely undermined by Governor Abbott and his corporate posse of people who want to undermine working people. Most of us living in this state, we're all workers, right? It's us against them. And they're taking away our ability to do that, our ability to exercise democracy and enjoy freedom in our local communities. And we've got to fight back. We've got to fight back on the local level. We've also got to fight back on the state level on this issue. And electoral change is going to be huge, but what has to precede the electoral changes, we all know so well, is mass organizing, union density, uplifting workers who aren't in unions too, to fight back. Every Texan, we've been partnering very closely with the National Domestic Workers Alliance, predominantly Black and brown women workers who face disproportionate levels of wage theft and misclassification. This is a class of workers that hundreds of years ago were enslaved humans and did this work for free. And so there are corporations and wealthy individuals who don't think that domestic workers even need to get paid in this modern day and age. And they are organizing, and we need to be in solidarity with them and everybody else and build our collective power to fight against the stripping of our local freedoms and the most fundamental activities that we have to protect our families.
Thank you, Amanda. I think that there's a clear difference, right, between what's happening at the federal and state level. And, with the passing of 2127, even though right now the city of Houston filed a lawsuit, and the city of San Antonio as well, Emily was talking about this earlier, hopefully, we'll get an injunction and this law will not go into effect on September 1st, because it is just inhumane, the fact that Governor Abbott signed this bill where we are denying construction workers the right to take a 10-minute break every 4 hours. That is just, I can't even put words together of what that means for workers. And really, something that it's always present with me is in 2015 when the city of Dallas passed their ordinance, and how that fight was led by the Granillo family, where they lost their 25-year-old son who was working in construction in a residential site. And he died of a heat stroke because his employer was not providing him with breaks, and they were just pushing to try to get and finish the project. And when they did the autopsy of Rodney, his temperature was 109 degrees. And he had nothing in his stomach, and his mom talks about this. So that is just something that I take with me, and really why we were in DC and why we're all together, and we will continue to fight. And even though they passed this bill, we will fight. We will find other ways to protect workers in our state. So speaking of fighting for workers at the local level and at the state level, Hany, in Houston and in Harris County, labor and community organizations have pushed for years progressive agendas and elected people that are making sure that that is going to be the priority. But I want to talk about an incredible win that happened earlier this year at Harris County Commissioner's Court, where there was a resolution that passed to invest $31 million for jobs for workers. So can you share with us what this incredible victory is about and what it means for Harris County?
Sure. So I think you're absolutely right that so many of the opportunities we have in front of us are very much at the local level. And I think it's been our view at the Area Labor Federation that there's a lot that we can do at the local level to seize those opportunities and push as far as we can. And we've tried to do that electorally. We've done that with housing campaigns, with the Build Houston Better campaign that we've convened with partners like the Workers Defense Project and the building trades. But we really saw the federal funds coming down, the American Rescue Plan Act, as another major opportunity. And one of the things that when that came down, we advocated that some of that money go into a range of different programs, but among them, apprenticeships. Fortunately, Harris County Commissioner's Court decided to do that. And then we put our hats in the ring to build out and expand the apprenticeships that we have in the Houston region. We've had long-standing, high-quality, very effective apprenticeship programs in the building construction trades in our region. Many of them are here today. I think what we were able to do with this is build upon that, but expand it and do some new things too. So we're really excited by what we're going to be able to do together over the next couple of years. So let me, if I could just summarize what that's all about and then talk about a little bit about how we got there. So it's going to be of the $31 million, $9.1 million is going to be going into apprenticeship programs in the Houston region, and by which I'm talking about registered joint apprenticeship training committees. And so what we did is in February, we were able to negotiate and get this contract. That money is going to be going into 8 building construction trades, JATCs. It's going to be going to the Building Construction Trades Council Apprenticeship Readiness Program. It's going to be going into a collaboration between the Transport Workers Union, Local 260, and Metro, our public transportation agency. And it's going to be going to the theater and stagehands to build out a registered apprenticeship program in live entertainment in Houston, too. So we're really excited by all this. Let me just try to give a little bit more detail. So we're going to be training 400 new apprentices and pre-apprentices with these funds. And everybody's going to be using the funds to hire more instructors and build out their curriculum and so on. But there's some specific things that are going to be happening. So let me speak a little bit about how some of the funds are going to be used. So on the building construction trade sides, we've got the ironworkers and the electricians, the pipe fitters, plumbers, painters, and I know I'm missing a couple, sheet metal workers, elevator constructors. So they're going to be using those funds not only for building out their own capacity with trainers and instructors, but the ironworkers are going to spend $400,000 to buy new spider cranes and virtual reality aerial lift equipment. The plumbers are going to spend $325,000 to build out a brazing lab and to add medical gas equipment to their capacity. The insulators are going to spend $300,000 to bring in new commercial cooling equipment and mock-up equipment and to buy a new mobile training facilitator unit. So this is all stuff that some of these programs have wanted to do for years, but never had the resources to do it, and now they do. And so I think they're all really excited for that. Metro is going to be using it to double the size of their apprenticeship program. They've been struggling to hire mechanics. And especially as the energy transition continues to get underway and they're buying new low-emissions vehicles, they need to be able to train up workers in new ways. So they're going to be using it to double the size of their apprentices, and they're going to use the money to actually pay the salaries of all those apprentices and be able to give them tools worth $4,000 apiece at the end of the program. So they're really excited to do that. And then I know the theater and stagehands, during the pandemic, they were Local 51's membership was just decimated by the shutdown of live entertainment downtown. And since that, as folks in Houston know, they've come back. The industry is just roaring now, and there's now a shortage of workers. And so they're excited to build out this apprenticeship program as a way to rebuild the workforce and continue to get some of this work. And they'll be registering the program. So that's all of this. I think is really exciting, and these are just huge opportunities. And we feel good about it because I think we, at the Labor Council, we figured out a way to work closely with our apprenticeship programs. We're going to be the 87% of that $9.1 million is going directly to the apprenticeship programs. We're going to play the role as the prime contractor. We're administering the money, we're invoicing, we're cutting checks once we get money from the county, handling compliance. That's the kind of work we're doing. We're also going to be building out a recruitment program to help build out the pool of apprentices that are applying from all across the county. Because that's something that's critical. The commissioners got behind this and voted for it unanimously because they're looking to see more of they've started to understand the opportunities that our union apprenticeship programs create for working people, and they want to make sure that more of their constituents are able to get into that. So those are the pieces we're going to be playing. So far as we know, I've been told this is the biggest local government investment in apprenticeship programs ever in the South. And so we're really excited by that. And just really thrilled to be able to give more workers access to apprenticeship opportunities. And if I could just take a minute to talk about how we got here. So, look, the first is, as I said at the very beginning, we've had really strong, high-quality apprenticeship programs in the building construction trades for years. That's number one. But it really took the Biden administration as well, and a unified government, not the divided government we have now, but the Democrats in Congress who were working in sync, who understood that during the pandemic, billions of dollars needed to be spent to make workers whole and to rebuild the economy better. And so with the American Rescue Plan Act, more money was coming to Harris County that we could take advantage of. That was a big deal. It took a pro-labor majority to be elected to Harris County that had a vision of how those new resources could be spent. Under the Republicans that had had control for years, frankly, they looked at the county as nothing more than a provider of parks and roads and public safety, and that's it. Whereas the new Democratic majority had a vision of understanding the county as fighting for more equity and opportunity for all working people. And they were committed to that. And they were willing to be bold about what they would do with government resources and take some risks, like investing in our apprenticeship programs. It also took 7 years of building to be able to get to a place where we had enough influence, where they took seriously the idea of investing in apprenticeships, and the credibility we built through multiple campaigns to establish the idea at the city of Houston and in Harris County that apprenticeships need to be invested in. It's a path out of poverty. It's a path to opportunity. And government needs to take responsibility for utilizing apprenticeships in the way that you discussed earlier, Ross. And then I think internally, took a lot of work amongst our affiliates to come together and say, okay, we see an opportunity. When we first heard about this, we asked people, what would you do with $500,000 or $1 million? So we try to get people to think big about what they might do in ways, because of course we're almost always working under the assumption that we're under constraints of finances. So this was a different situation, and we were able to pull all that together, and the various programs that came together trusted us. It took a long time to get to that place where they thought, okay, let's put some resources into making this happen. And then we've got new programs like the Transport Workers Union and Theater Stagehands also committed to building out new registered apprenticeship programs in 2 new industries and taking a risk there. So that took a long time to get there. But I think that's really what led to this. It was after that 7 years of work as an area labor federation, coming together, building up our political power, that led us to the point where we could even get government to take this kind of a step.
Absolutely. And really, Hany, the work that y'all have led in Houston is just so incredible. Raising wages, safety standards for construction workers, requiring in housing projects, so many examples of just your leadership and your team's leadership and the work that you've done, and just electing Judge Hidalgo and the other commissioners. So it's really inspiring work. Thank you for that. So the last question for our panel, I guess let's talk about what's next. What's next to win for workers at the federal, state, and local level? And I'll start with you, Ross.
Well, continuing to go after this infrastructure money as it rolls out. I mean, this is the best. If this isn't something you've been involved with personally, the best thing you can do is go back home after this and jump in there. Start talking to your county commission, start talking to your mayor, actually start tracking this stuff. The federal government, the bipartisan infrastructure law, the White House has a website that you could search it. You can see every project that's getting funded, that's been announced in your area. You can zoom in, search around. You can see, is this a project that we could build, that our union should be involved with? Is this an organizing target? That's all work that we can do pretty well immediately, all as individuals. And then the other part of that is, again, the election coming up. I mean, it is so important at this point for this to have a lasting impact, for us to be able to build a stronger movement and stronger organizations in the same way that our grandfathers and grandmothers did. We need to be able to get 4 more years in the White House. We need to be able to preserve a Democratic Senate and win back the House of Representatives. That starts now. A lot of folks don't make up their minds about elections until a lot sooner out. You don't have to be doing GOTV a year out from the election. But having that basic education, that starts now, taking a lot of this information, speaking to fellow union members, not being afraid of the hard conversations. I will say, there's more partisanship and polarization than there's ever been. But if you actually have those conversations, if you respect where people are coming from and keep circling it back to what's important and valuable to us as union members, at the end of that conversation, the real hard partisans won't change their minds, but there's a level of mutual respect. And the folks who are on the fence, that does matter to them. So making sure people understand what all of this legislation was, what it means for us, and how it represents this administration, this president fighting for us in a way that past presidents have not, and the next president may not. That's work that has to be done right now by the folks, all of us in this room. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Russ, I have a chant. And I say, what day is it? Election day. Every day is election day. And we just talked about what's at risk and what we have to lose. So every day is election day. So Amanda, talk to us. What's next at the state level?
I think if you're sitting in this room, you can run for state office, and you should. I think, we need a labor caucus at the Tech Sledge. We need to be able to say the word union and say it loud and proud and from the steps. And we're doing a good job. We kill a lot of bad bills. But we have the vision for how we want to live in this state, and we need to actualize it. And we ourselves need to run, and we need to run on labor agendas. And we need our public sector workers to collective bargain, because they're going to save us. Our public sector workers are looking out for every single one of us. They are the stewards of our common good. And they are banned from collective bargaining in the state since 1947, a policy steeped in segregation, in the Confederacy, and slavery, and all these awful things, and it doesn't reflect who we are. And Texas AFT ran one hell of a campaign, and they filed a bill to collective bargain, the first one filed, I think, in 22 years. And we can do this because our teachers and our education staff, they're looking out for us and our children and our futures. And we're not going to get the investments we need if they're not sitting across the table from the boss and demanding better for all of us. And that goes for our state employee workers as well. TSEU fought hard for all of us this legislative session. We are facing erosion of our state workforce. It's accelerating by design. Our population has almost doubled since 1993, and we have the same number of state employees providing the services that we all need. The public sector is the front line, and we have a base there, and we can grow it, and we can mobilize, and we can deliver on a policy agenda that serves our common good. So that's where I see the state agenda.
Thank you, Amanda. And we need more champions, labor champions at the legislature. We need people that are going to be in the back mic and in the front mic and just really pushing back against this, all the divisive issues that the state leadership is pushing. And to conclude, Hany, tell us what we need to know, what we need to do at the local level.
So on this apprenticeship contract with the county, right now it's all about execution. That's telling me to stop. Okay, but I'm going to keep going for a little bit. Okay.
It's okay. You keep going, Hany.
All right. So we need to execute this program because we're now under a contract, and it's a very different relationship to the government than we're used to. So we're going to execute well. And I neglected to say, if we do that, there's the potential to extend the contract for another $9 million for 2 more years. So $18 million over 4 years. So that's number one. But I think it's also we've been talking to the county commissioners. They have started to really understand that if they can talk to their constituents about the importance of good jobs, if they lead with that kind of a message and they are able to show they're delivering good jobs and more residents in their precincts are able to get access to that, they're starting to figure out this is a winning issue. And so for us, the way we're looking at it is we got to focus on organizing, we got to focus on elections, as y'all have pointed out, and then we're going to use that to continue to win policy gains that benefit working people. So that's really what our agenda is at the local level. As we organize, we build our resources, our war chest, we can elect more labor allies, we can move an agenda forward, we can put in place policies that benefit working people, and then also give people a reason to come out to vote. And we can really do that at the local level. It's hard as hell at the federal level in some ways, especially in Texas. Our ability to influence that is less, but we're moving in the right direction. You're right, Ross, we're moving in the right direction. But at the state level, we're mostly in a defensive posture and doing amazing work to hold off the attacks. But at the local level, there are huge opportunities to make gains where we've got allies elected. So we need to continue that, deepen that, get our folks out to vote. Our members and workers who aren't in unions yet, we need to figure all that out, run big programs, get them out to vote, and that's how we can continue to win. Let me also say this about House Bill 2127. I think the way we look at it is it is an obstacle. But like we always know in the labor movement, obstacles are just obstacles. They're not permanent defeats. And so, yes, they hobbled our ability to move progressive policy, particularly at the city level, less so at the county level. We're just going to figure out ways, creative ways, to get around those obstacles and continue to move forward our agenda.
We won't stop fighting for workers. And I just want to thank you all so much for having this conversation, and thank you all so much for being here. Let's give an applause for this incredible panel.